Hello, welcome to Classically Imperfect, a mental health organization dedicated to helping young classical musicians struggling with mental health distress. I'm Mary Elizalde, one of the co-founders and the director of operations, and today I am joined by LA Phil trumpeter Christopher Still, where we're going to be talking about how to healthily balance being a professional musician with other interests. Hi, Chris, how are you?
Hey, Mary, I'm good. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this conversation. It's a great topic.
Thank you for joining. So the first question I have for you, by the way, I just wanted to say I saw the Tchaikovsky Spectacular last night, practicing a little bit, warming up, and I admire that because that's something that I struggle with, just warming up in general and finding the time to do that. But yeah, I just wanted to say that.
We got lucky getting that concert out of the way before the rains came. Those of you who
Yeah.
are in Los Angeles, we're getting a tropical storm here. So I don't think the history of the Hollywood Bowl has been rained out more than a handful of times. So we're
Mhm.
very lucky with that in LA. But yeah, Tchaikovsky was fun. The cannons, all the fireworks.
Mhm.
I've never actually seen the fireworks show because we're always on stage.
Yeah.
But I can
Uh-huh.
hear it and I can smell the stuff burning. So it must have been a fun show.
Yeah, it was. Let's just get started. Can you just tell us a little bit about your musical background, how you got involved with music?
Yeah, for sure. I'm from Long Island, New York, and my parents were both pharmacists, but my dad played trumpet in the North Patchogue Fire Department band. And when he was, didn't have a babysitter available, he would just bring me to rehearsals and sit me right next to him on the chair in the rehearsals. And since my earliest memory actually is sitting there and looking up at the conductor and seeing all the shiny metal and all the cool stuff. And I, like most little boys, was like, I want to be like my dad. So I started taking trumpet lessons as well.
Mhm.
Fast forward to deciding where to go to college, I decided I was going to be a music teacher. My original career goal was to be a band teacher, probably in the New York area.
Mhm.
And I went to the Crane School of Music at SUNY Potsdam, which is in the middle of nowhere. It's really close to the Canadian border. It is so cold that basically all you can do is practice or, sleep. So I did a lot of practicing and became a really great music educator, which I think is really important. But my junior year, I decided that I think I liked performing almost as much as I liked helping other people learn how to perform. So I went to do my master's at the New England Conservatory in Boston in orchestral performance.
Mhm.
And that is where all those skills sort of came together and sort of set me on the journey of deciding that I wanted to be an orchestral player and truly inhabit the title teaching artist or performing artist, in terms of I want to help other people find that inspiration and that connectivity to what we do. But I also think that me doing it myself is also really inspiring. So that's how I ended up here in the LA Phil.
That's so cool. I actually went to the Summer Orchestra Institute at NEC last year, and I just love the environment there, the Boston area in general, and yeah, it was really cool. Um,
Boston's a great town, man. The good pizza up there, the
yeah,
Charles River. It's a fabulous place to spend a few years.
definitely. Can you tell us a little bit about your business, how you got, well, you kind of explained a little bit about your interests before, but how you decided like this is what you wanted to do, or just like what services that your business offers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big gap in between that question and the musical history, and I think I should fill it in a little bit, because especially considering the fact that we're talking about classically imperfect, we're talking about imperfection, we're talking about failure, we're talking about feeling like you want to quit and give up. There was a huge chunk of time. So let's just recap. I went to undergrad, music education. I actually also did a performance major. So I
Mhm.
did a double degree.
Mhm.
My master's was in orchestral performance. So 6 years of school, 3 degrees under my belt, $40,000 of student loan debt when I graduated. And I walked out of the graduation ceremony at NEC. Where's my orchestra job? And
Mhm.
it was nowhere, because I had no idea what I was doing as far as getting a job and becoming gainfully employed.
Mhm.
I spent most of my time in my master's learning how to play my instrument, which is really important for musicians to, be
Yeah.
technically proficient. But I also had none of the skills of, how do I practice effectively? How do I deal with nerves? How do I actually go out and take an audition? What is audition strategy? What do I do when I fail? How do I learn from failures? I
Mhm.
didn't know any of that stuff. What I did know was that I had a $433.16 student loan payment due every month, which, when I graduated, that's a ton of money. I'm like, where am I going to come up with this money? I'm going to flip out. So I went out and got the first job that I could think of, which was working at a running store in Cambridge. Because I'm a runner, I've always been a runner. And this store was hiring, it paid minimum wage. I got to hang out with runners all day, and I started working there. I'll give you this quick story because it's relevant to the question.
Totally.
One day, a Boston Symphony horn player named Gus Sebring came walking in to get fit for running shoes. And I instantly recognized him because I go to the Boston Symphony all the time. Of course, he doesn't know who I am. Why would he? And I helped him find some shoes and I watched him run and we talked a little bit about what his issues were. And I brought out a pair of shoes for him to try. And I said, well, these shoes are really going to help your torsional rigidity and stabilize that overpronation. And it might even add like a fifth to your upper register. And he went, "What? What did you just say?" I was like, "No, I'm just teasing you, Mr. Sebring. I'm a musician. I know you from the Boston Symphony." And we laughed. We had a good chat. Got
Mhm.
some shoes, and he left. And I literally consider that like my Cinderella moment. I'm literally down there on my knees fitting this Boston Symphony musician with shoes and thinking, I want to be the one who's buying the running shoes, not working in the running store. What do I need to do to actually put this degree and this stuff I've learned to work? And that was where this notion of this swallowing of the honesty pill. What do I need to work on that I know I need to work on that I've been pushing under the rug? What are my feelings about my perfectionism or my imposter syndrome? And it was that moment that kind of started this kernel of thinking that eventually led to me having all the jobs and audition success that I had. And that's where the business came from, is how can I help other people figure that out? So that's just the context of your question. We can get into any of those topics that are interesting to you, but
Mhm.
know that for me, the X factor was recognizing the fact that I wasn't actually dealing with the things that I needed to deal with because they were scary.
That's kind of like how I felt when I saw you just standing right in front of me when we ran into each other at the bowl. It was kind of just like, I'm working here, but I kind of really want to be up there. But at the same time, I have so many other interests. And that's kind of really what sparked me to do this interview with you, just seeing how you balance everything and like while keeping yourself healthy, if that matters to you. Which leads me to my next question. Do you find it difficult to manage being a professional musician while running your own business? Do you have any tips for me or for anyone listening?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. I do a whole bunch of different coaching at Honesty Pill. Um, one bucket I teach is audition strategy, which is what we kind of talked about a moment ago, where I'm helping people connect the dots into how do I actually prepare and put actionable things in place to win a job, and that's important. But then the other thing, and this kind of came about at the beginning of the pandemic, when auditions were gone, orchestras were shut down. How can I do audition coaching when there's no auditions? So
Mhm,
at that point, I said, well, what I can do is help other musicians and creatives take this incredible amount of skills and soft skills and related techniques and things that we've learned as musicians, time organization, goal setting, working with other people, public speaking, communication, all those things that you learn as a musician, and
mhm,
turn that into other ways to serve, not just being a musician, but how can I be a better nutrition coach or meditation coach or a running coach or a chamber music coach or there's so many things that we could be doing.
mhm,
And that's kind of where the business coaching part of my work comes out of. So it is a lot to do because there's so many moving parts, either in learning about how to play and how to win an audition, or to how to create a business, and how do we balance both of those things. And I can't tell you that I've like cracked the code and my life is a blissful dream of balance and equanimity because I hustle and I have ups and downs like everybody else.
mhm,
But there is a kernel that I want to share that I think would really maybe be helpful for a lot of people. And to understand this, we have to talk about this idea of where motivations come from.
mhm,
And where they come from, in my way of thinking of this, there's only two places that motivations come from fear or love. And another way to put it could be lack or abundance.
mhm,
Um, fixed mindset, growth mindset. Those are however you want to describe it. When you have a feeling, if you go to an audition and you see that other trumpet player who's always at those auditions and you're worried that they're going to beat you, that's a fear mindset. That is a lack mindset. That is an out of alignment feeling. When you go to an audition and say, I've done the work, I deserve to be here, I'm excited to show them what I can do. That comes from love. I can't wait to show this committee what I can do. So, understanding that those two buckets are where most of our thoughts come from, then you can step into this tool, which I'm going to share, which is called MVP, which stands for minimum viable product. So what does that mean? Well, that means if you are, uh, you know, in school right now, or you're preparing for a career or a teaching job or an audition or creating a business, a podcast, interview series, whatever, you cannot fall into the fear lack mindset of, I need to make this so amazing and so perfect and so robust right from day one that everybody loves it, because that's a fear motivated thought. That's you thinking, I am not enough and I'm not going to create something that's great and I have to work my tail off to hold down a job in the LA Phil or get a job in the LA Phil or run a successful business. So if you notice your thoughts when you're creating something, when you're doing something important, notice where they come from. Most of us are coming from lack because that's just been our human experience as we grow. Most of us don't have a growth mindset, or at least we have to work hard to maintain it. So, why is this important to minimum viable product? Okay, here it is. You can create with effortlessness. You don't have to turn yourself inside out. There's no prizes for grinding yourself down to a nub to create your goals. So, what does the words minimum viable product mean? That means what is the minimum you can do? And people will hear that and go, so you're telling me to like phone it in?
Mhm.
No, because the second word is viable. What does viable mean? Meaning able to sustain life or function. What
Mhm.
is the minimum effort I can do that is viable to create that product, whether it's a successful audition or a great podcast or whatever? If you can understand what minimum viable product is, number one, you're going to have more energy left over for the other things in your life, like fitness, like relationships, like nutrition, like sleep. And
Mhm.
if you're trying to grind yourself down, those things are going to fall off the radar. You will not be able to sustain that. So, how do I balance these things? Well, I have found ways to be hyper efficient in my practicing and preparation so I can do my job at a very high level at the LA Phil. I like to think I do it at a high level and also be able to have energy left over to create things like my podcast or honestypill.com or whatever. So, this is something I think that be fun for people to chew on. Um, Think about your next project. What's the minimum you can do that would be viable, that would still lead with service, still you to believe it should exist in the world, and throw it out there. And here's a bonus for you. You probably won't get it right the first time. You may have to like flop a few times and then make some adjustments. Why not flop and make adjustments on a minimum viable product rather than build out this whole complex thing and then you have to tear it all down and recreate it over here? Guess what? If you've done all this work, you're going to be really resistant to wanting to break it back down. And that's where swallowing the honesty pill comes in, where you can say, you know what, this isn't working. This isn't serving me. I'm going to let it go.
That was a lot to take in, but I definitely understand. Do you have any tips for someone who's just starting with the MVP?
MVP?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, First of all, know your superpower. Know
Okay.
your superpower. I can use myself as an example. One of my superpowers is helping people understand that auditions are attainable for everyone.
Mhm.
Everyone. Unless you don't have any teeth or something, you're probably not going to be a good trumpet player. But you know what? You can probably go get teeth implants. Or, if you've got like one arm, you're probably not going to be a great viola player. Okay. But
Mhm.
mostly, auditions can be demystified. Then understand what you stand for.
Mhm.
I stand for, I mean, write this down. What's your superpower? What do you stand for? What do you stand against? Why do you think this thing should exist in the world? Who are your people? Those are the five things. I'll repeat that. What is your superpower? Audition strategy. What do you stand for? Demystifying it. Anybody can figure out this. What do you stand against? Going into debt $40,000 and not learning how to take an audition? I don't think that's cool. I don't think people should go to school and go into debt if they don't get it. Why do I think this should exist in the world? Because music is for everybody. It connects all of us. And who is my crowd? Who is this for? Any musician that is, there's nothing else they want to do with their life but play in an orchestra and are willing to dig in and do the work and swallow the honesty pill. So I would answer those five questions if you're just starting out.
Thank you. This kind of leads to my next question, which is how do you make time for yourself outside of working in an orchestra and doing your business and podcast?
I mean, it's the same thing. So Have you ever seen that like college lecture? It's probably on YouTube and Instagram and everywhere, where there's a bucket and then there are some big rocks, some medium rocks, some small rocks, and some sand. Have you seen this thing?
I don't think so.
Okay, so what it is it's an exercise in prioritization and understanding what's important to you. So let's think of the big rocks as the big goals. Like I want an orchestra job. The medium rocks would be medium goals like I want to get better at triple tonguing or transposition. The small rocks would be I want to clean my practice room up and make it all tidy and organized and buy a new pencil sharpener so I have sharp pencils. And then the sand would be I need to go shopping for flip flops so I can be comfortable when I'm practicing. Okay. I'm just making those up. They're completely random.
Mhm.
What most people will do when faced with the challenge of achieving their big goal is go, yikes, that's too scary. I don't even know how to break that down. I'm going to go shop for flip flops. Right. And then
Mhm.
so you put the sand in the bucket, fill up the sand with the bucket. And then the next thing there is, well, I'm going to order a new pencil sharpener on eBay or Amazon. Okay, now I have to put the small rocks in. I got to work on my triple tonguing a little bit. And they put the medium rocks in, and then they got to work on their orchestra strategy. They're too tired. They have no more energy. It's 10:30 p.m. There's no room for the big rocks. So you could argue that the bucket's not big enough to hold everything.
Mhm.
However, if you do it in the reverse order, take your hardest goal, hardest thing to do today, most important priority, and align it with when you're at your best. Put the big rocks in first. Then you move down to the next one, middle. Small rocks fit, and then the sand just trickles down and fills in all the cracks around it. Guess what? Everything fit in the bucket. So, this way of prioritizing and understanding what's important and having the courage to actually do the things that are the hard things first is how we can keep time in our life for flip flop buying. Or I like to go mountain running. I like to run on the boardwalk on the beach. I like to brew beer. I like to hang out with my kids. I like to play the guitar. Like those are my sand. But those things can fit in around the important things I have to do, like spending time with my family. Obviously, my job is not negotiable. I have to have my job ready. Well, it almost sounded like I was prioritizing hanging out with my kids with shopping for flip flops. I didn't mean to say it like that.
No worries.
There are certain things that are inflexible, like maybe your classes are at a certain time. And so if you want to do yoga, but you also have all these classes, you have to make sure that you prioritize your day in a way that makes room for everything to fit in.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? I don't know if I explained that very well,
Oh
but
yeah, that definitely did make sense. Can you give us an example of one of your days and how you make time to prioritize the most important things while also balancing?
yeah. So you have to have some sort of tool to organize yourself, okay?
Mhm.
Unless you're like got a brain that can just hold everything all at once, which that is me, that's for sure. So you can use paper or you can use electronic tools.
Mhm.
I like to use Google Calendar because it just syncs with everything in my life.
Yeah.
One of my clients saw my Google Calendar and the way that I use something called time blocking or calendar blocking, and she said it gave her heart palpitations to see how micromanaged my day is.
Mhm.
If you, I don't know if it's on my website, but I can link it to you in the show notes. But I have a video that shows how to use your calendar as a productivity tool
Mhm.
and to micro calendar block things out. And it actually doesn't give me a feeling of restriction. It gives me a feeling of freedom because I know that this is going to happen here and this is going to happen here and this is low priority. So if I need to cancel it or change it, no big deal. And that is how that I can make all that work. Um, an example of that would be like making time for this interview today. This was non-negotiable. I committed to this time frame for this interview. I put it in my calendar in a certain color, and I knew that I wasn't going to go out and fill sandbags for the storm during this time because I already prioritized it. That takes the pressure off the decision making for when I'm tired, and I can just do those things when I want to do them. So, calendar blocking is a really good one. I've got a couple videos on that I can share with your audience if it's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. I'm the exact same way. I use the calendar on my laptop and I just put everything today. And I literally did this before the interview. I was like, okay, I'm having the interview and then I'm going to schedule time for homework and then I'm going to but I think it really helps me as well. And I think every musician should really do it, especially if you have multiple priorities and not just school and you have practicing and other things. You might have already answered this, but what's one healthy coping mechanism that you found to be the easiest and most effective way to help keep you healthy and balanced in terms of like mental health and balancing everything that you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me give it put it this way. Have you ever gone to like the grocery store when you're really hungry and tired?
Hmm.
What do you end up putting in the cart? Cookies,
Yeah.
like all the carbohydrates, and like you just
Hmm.
like you're not thinking clearly because you're hungry and you're tired and you just want to have the food that's comforting.
Hmm.
So what if instead of that scenario, we hit the rewind button, and I don't know, let's pretend that Monday morning you're feeling great. You just came back from the gym, you had a healthy breakfast, your trainer was there, and you're just feeling really good about yourself, and you wrote down a grocery list at that moment, specifics what you wanted. Just the act of intentionally writing down and setting your intentions in a clarity way, in a non-reactive way of the grocery list means that even if you did go to Trader Joe's and you're exhausted and tired and you're like bleary and you're walking around, you can just go down the list. You don't, the pressure of making the decisions has been removed from you at that point, and you know you're going to make healthier choices, which gives you two things. It gives you the assurance that you're aligning your actions with your goals. I want to be healthy and nutritious and feel good. I'm buying healthy food that I like. That's a really nice thing that gives you energy. The second thing it does is it gives you permission to throw the cookies in there or whatever, because it's like nothing wrong with having some cookies. There's nothing wrong with laying on the couch and watching Netflix.
Hmm.
If you've done the work of organizing your actions with your goals, you get to have the freedom to blow off an afternoon or sleep late on a Saturday or whatever. So one of the tools that I've used to help with that mental health aspect of it, which I think it is a mental health thing, is I will take myself on a coffee date occasionally with my paper journal, and I will just sit there and no computers. I will just write down brainstorm style the things that are important to me that I want to get done, things that are that I want to remember, affirmations that I want to remind myself about. I'll calendar block a little for the week, and I'll know exactly what the week's going to look like. It's not fun because it's like work, but it's a little date with myself that says, let's do our grocery list. Let's do our planning for the week when we're feeling happy at a coffee shop, listen to some nice music, so that when the week comes and I get tired, I've already made those decisions. And it
Hmm.
takes the pressure off me. And I'm saying, this week felt bad. I got behind. I didn't achieve everything I wanted to. It's okay. I had a strategy for this week, and I'm going to give myself forgiveness for not doing it all. And I'm going to celebrate the fact that I operated with intention. Most people are walking around being reactive all the time.
Hmm.
Email is the biggest one. If you wake up in the morning and check your email, you are giving your schedule over to someone else. You're being reactive.
Hmm.
Schedule time to look at your email. 2 o'clock on Monday. I won't look at the inbox before 2 o'clock. That's a great thing you can do right there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is switching from panic mode into calm, thoughtful shopping list mode is one of the biggest tools you can do to get out in front of pressure, panic, stress, worry, lack in your life.
I think just looking at, for example, your coffee date, you could look at it as a reward for all the work that you've done throughout the week. And it's not like during that coffee date, you're doing nothing. You're planning for the week after that. And it might seem like work, but I feel like it's kind of relieving just knowing everything that's going on and like seeing all your plans. Your brain is thinking about things other than, oh, I have to do this week, but it's kind of just like, oh, I have to do this week. Okay, let me just write it down. It's kind of really relieving for me, especially. I don't know if it's the same for you.
The takeaway is I want to make this clear. I'm not setting up some sort of non negotiable, non flexible schedule that I will definitely adhere to. That's not what I'm saying. I'm
Mhm.
saying I'm setting an intentional schedule from a space of non reactivity that I can absolutely flex and change as it suits me and my mood and my energy levels. But I'm setting myself up for success by just making my intentions known. You
Mhm.
know, if you want to level this up a lot, have an accountability partner that you check in with once a week. Just someone that you report to and say, "How'd your week go?" By the way, they know that hard project you've been working on. How's that going for you? That alone will give you the energy in the days when you just don't feel like you can make it happen. You got to do your homework after this call, right? You might be tired or you might be thinking about what we talked about. Having an accountability partner, if I said I'm going to check in with you tonight and say, Mary, how'd your homework go? Like that would be a really a powerful thing.
Yeah.
This is why professional athletes have coaches and professional actors have coaches. Having that help and that accountability is powerful.
No, yeah, accountability is definitely important. And it's also important to know that things happen in life and you're not going to be able to meet all your goals or do everything in your calendar, which is completely okay. But it's like you said, it's good to have a visual and not always necessarily follow it, but just know that it's there. My next question for you is, do you have any tips for classical musicians interested in pursuing both a professional music career and another project or field? Like myself, I'm interested in pursuing psychology and music. So, do you have any tips or anything?
Yeah, I'm pretty passionate about that question, which is um, I think you really have to have other paths to go down. And why not anyway? Like why would you want to go through this whole journey of mastery and then only use like 1% of your bandwidth?
Mhm.
And also, I will say that I don't think it's enough for musicians, especially if we're talking about like classical performing musicians, classically imperfect, right? If we're
Mhm.
talking about classical musicians, it's not enough just to show up and play great every day. You need to be an advocate for why people should care about what you're doing. You need to be able to communicate what it is that people are about to hear. My
Mhm.
favorite thing to do isn't play a Mahler symphony. It's to talk to some patron on the escalator down to the parking garage afterwards and like check out what their experience was and say, what did you experience? How was that for you? What did that make you feel? That stuff is important. And being able to clearly articulate and connect with people off stage is as important as connecting with them on stage.
Mhm.
So if you are a musician who wants to do more, or maybe a pandemic just happened and shut your orchestra down, maybe your orchestra folded, maybe you got focal dystonia and you can't play anymore, whatever, you are not defined by your instrument, okay? And
Mhm.
there is so many other things you could be doing that, and I'll make this offer. If anybody ever wants to bounce ideas off of me, you can always book a call with me on my website because this is one of my favorite topics to help people figure out what is it that we could be doing in addition to just being a really great flute player or a great bass player or whatever. I will tell you, it's not something you can just do overnight. It takes time to build these extra skill sets, but here's a really good piece of news. The amount of effort you've put in your life of mastering your instrument, learning a new skill is peanuts compared to that because you've got all those other skills you can rely on if you're open to the fact that it's all related.
Yeah, it depends really on the topic, but I think especially for psychology, it's very interesting how music and psychology are connected. And that's the reason why I kind of got into music and psychology was because of the pandemic. It really got me thinking. I was alone in my room practicing, and it really got me thinking. There's just so many things that musicians don't talk about. And I think it's so interesting how everything seems to be connected specifically within this field. Do you think there are enough mental health resources within the classical music community?
No. I mean, come on. It's like we're a disaster when it comes to, Brene Brown's favorite word, shame. Like people have so much shame around mental health. And it's like it's such a basic place that people need to start is, what's your number one resource? I ask that question of people when they come in to work with me. What's your number one resource? And people say, well, I have a great teacher. I have a degree from Juilliard. I
Mhm.
own Guarneri. My parents were both musicians. Yeah, those are all great. But your number one resource is your enthusiasm. If your enthusiasm wanes, all those other connectivity things you have are absolutely useless, meaningless if you don't have the enthusiasm. And protecting your mental health, what is mental health? Mental health is being able to hold two opposing feelings in your hands at the same time. I'm scared about this audition. I really want this orchestra job. I really want to talk to this person, but I'm afraid that they'll blow me off. I want to apply for this teaching gig, but I don't know if I'm good enough. Having the ability to manage both of those thoughts at the same time is what good mental health is, because that's we all have those thoughts.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't have those balance is probably like a sociopath, and not anybody that I've ever met. Like we all have those feelings of doubt, imposter syndrome, etc. So I would love to see uh, part of core curriculum at colleges include finance, nutrition, time management, playing your instrument, chamber music, audition strategy, therapy, uh, mental health training. I mean, we should have all of that as part of our experience in education. Everyone should take therapy for a period of time, especially politicians. It should be required that they have ongoing therapy, by the way. But hey, if you want to be happy and sustain an actual career where you are a satisfied musician, you've got to deal with what's in between your ears just as much as you need to deal with how you play your instrument.
Yeah, I think the classical music industry, like as a whole, is kind of really rooted on tradition, and it's a little hard to bring up the idea of mental health within this community since it's so rooted on tradition. And one thing that I've been thinking about a lot recently is some conservatories are 100, 200, 250 years old, right? But why has the structure not changed, and why do these conservatories see how these students struggle with mental health and kind of like have a reputation for being really brutal? Like, why hasn't anything changed? How long it's been since it's been created, you know?
Well,
And that's kind of something that I really want to like spark conversation. And I just really hope that these institutions see that their students are struggling and do something about it, because it's really important, and they shouldn't have a reputation for having their kids struggling, you know?
Well, what are we doing here right now? We're giving a voice to it. And when you give a voice to something, it's real and then it can create a movement. And I actually think that it's not really about the institutions. I think it's about creating things like you're creating. And I just want to tell you, great job, by the way, creating a resource like this where you're having these conversations about this important topic of balance, mental health, all the things that you've been talking about with me. It doesn't really have to be that you need to convince the institutions. I think you can create something on your own. I think the power of voice is shifting more towards individuals. One of the positives of social media is that anyone can now get on a platform and make a statement and make a stand about what they believe in, like you're doing. And once you give something a voice, it's real, and we can talk about it, and that the conversation needs to continue.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I also wanted to add was there's a new proposition in California. It's Proposition 28, which is trying to integrate more arts into California schools. And I went to this, it was at the Getty Center. It was in June, and it was right after I came back from a summer music camp. And I was sitting in the audience, and the only reason I went was because Yola was performing in it. I didn't know like what was going on, like who was going to be talking, but I walked in, we sat down. My brother, who was in also in Yola, got to play. They played Vivaldi or something. But after they finished, there was a Stanford professor and someone else from Johns Hopkins University who came down and were talking about mental health. And I was just so starstruck because I was like, wow, I just came back from music camp and I'm at a meeting where they're talking about mental health. And the professor from Stanford was talking about how they're looking for more musicians and artists in their universities because we really understand psychology and things around mental health. And it's just scientifically proven that musicians and other artists are not necessarily smarter, but have more skills um, in their life. And they're really looking for more students to join their universities, and actually gave us all a free copy. It's a book called Your Brain on Art, which I think you should check out. I haven't had the chance to fully read it, but it talks about just different learning aspects within yourself as an artist and helping treat with anxiety and like trauma and things like that. But I know you recommended a book to me. I haven't had the chance to read it yet, but I'm definitely going to get to it. But I just wanted to mention that I was just like a little starstruck. Thank you for your words about Classically Imperfect. It's definitely been a ride. I don't know if you know what the Villa National Symposium, I don't know if you know what it is. Yeah, but they actually said that they're thinking of us coming in to talk about our project and just hopefully spark conversation within greater institutions and stuff.
Love
So
it. That's
um,
a great. I love Yola Youth Orchestra Los Angeles. It's a fabulous institution, and man, it would be a great pairing for you to go in and talk to those students and everybody and get the message out even more. That's cool.
yeah, definitely. I just wanted to say thank you again so much for joining us. Do you have any other comments or questions or anything else to say?
No, I mean, I'll just share one of my favorite quotes with you, which is leap and build the helicopter on the way down. It's like you're never going to feel ready. It's always going to be scary. There's never a perfect time to do anything. Just, get some information, get some guidance, get a support mechanism, get an accountability partner, get a coach, get a community, and then jump and just figure it out. Don't wait till it's perfect. It's never going to be perfect. you got to do the things if you want to see the results, and you've got to do something different if you want to expect a different result. So swallow the honesty pill. You know, it's time to face the music, is what I always say. Just face it, do it. That's how we move forward and fail up.
Thank you so much again for joining us. And if you want to learn more about Classically Imperfect, make sure to click the link in our bio.
Great.
Bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.